Continuing our video, children, as it got ended, mutualistic or symbiotic nitrogen fixation can also be seen as a relationship between a cyanobacteria or a blue-green alga, that is Anabaena, which carries on the function of nitrogen fixation, and this is seen to live symbiotically with other plants like water fern, that is Azolla. So in this case, nitrogen fixation is brought by the cyanobacterial partner. Coming next is the symbiotic relationship between termites and trichonympha. Termites, we know, they feed on wood, and they feed on wood through the cellulose digesting flagellate. We can call it as trichonympha as the scientific name. The flagellate is unable to live independently. Alright, so all termites of this category, they will be unable to utilize the cellulose in the absence of flagellate, whereas flagellate in the absence of termite will not be able to survive. So it's like a very specific relationship that both cannot manage without each other. This needs it for the digestion of cellulose, the help of trichonympha, and trichonympha needs termites to survive. Otherwise, it will not be able to live. The next example is the category of ruminants and cellulose digestion. Ruminants, what does the term mean? Ruminant is any animal that brings back the food from its stomach and chews it again. For example, various cattle, the herbivorous animals, right? So there are many animals that bear special type of bacteria which are able to digest the cellulose. And where do the bacteria live? Especially in the stomach or in the appendix of the ruminant mammals, right? So in this case, the products of digestion, they are shared by both the category of partners. Let us see the example first. Cellulose digesting ciliate is called scientifically endotidinum, right? And the bacterium, which is called as rumenococcus, right? So once again, there are two microorganisms which have the tendency to digest cellulose. One is ciliate, that is endotidinum, and the other is a bacterium called as rumenococcus. And the rumen of stomach and appendix of the animals that the microorganism is harbored in, and the products of digestion from the cellulose will be shared by both the partners. So you can see it's a benefit of both. Without these microorganisms, the ruminant won't be able to digest cellulose, right? And this, on the return part of its work, is getting a ready-made food and a place to live. Coming next is another very strange relationship called as myrmecophily. Myrmecophily is seen by some mango trees, right, which are known to harbor ants in the tree. These ants, they protect the fruits, etc., from the attack by various enemies, you can say like intruders, which can destroy the fruits. All right. So other plant we can see Acacia spherocephala. This is a South American plant, all right, and this also shows to harbor the ants by forming hollow spines to give shelter to the ants, and it has presence of food material at the tips of leaflets to feed the ants. So this is like a treat to the ants which will come in a line and reach up till this food supply, right? And at the same time, they have a shelter to live in to live over here. So this is the food and this is the home of the ants. And what is the plant getting in turn? Of course, protection from various herbivores to attack. So this type of relationship between a plant and ants, this is called as myrmecophily. So this is a very interesting symbiotic relationship. So once again, let us see what all things we have done till just now. The examples we are discussing under mutualism or symbiosis: lichens, mycorrhiza, zoochlorellae and animals, then nitrogen fixation, then relationship between termites and trichonympha, ruminants and cellulose digesting mammals or animals. Then a very strange and peculiar relationship of myrmecophily that is seen between mango and also Acacia sphaerocephala, an American plant of origin, and ants, which are getting home as well as food material. Coming to a very simple and most common relationship between pollinators and dispersers. This is a very fascinating example between plants and animals, all right? And this type of mutualism is showing one need on one side, that plants, they do need the animals for the act of pollination to be done for the flowers and also for dispersal of seeds. So these pollinators, which are we can say generally the insects or the dispersers, they get an attraction of, let's say, edible pollen grains, nectar, juicy and nutritious fruits, which are going to attract the animals to come to the plants. And at the same time, plant is happy to invite them. Why? Because in return, either they are bringing the pollen for fertilization, or while going back, they might take away the seeds along with them to disperse them. So both are happy. Animals getting a treat in the form of pollen grains, nectar and juicy and nutritious fruits, whereas plants getting agents to pollinate, at the same time disperse their seeds. The next relationship of mutualism is seen between fig and wasp, which is blastophaga. Fig and wasp, they show an extreme case of mutualism, and this is the pollinated plant and this is the pollinator. In many species of fig trees, there is one-to-one relationship between fig and the wasp species. That is, one species of fig will only be pollinated by a specific species of wasp and no other species. So, in other ways, we can say fig is totally dependent on the wasp for its pollination. Let us see a diagram before I proceed now. This is the inflorescence of fig tree, right? You can see the wasp is there inside for food and also for the survival. Now the inflorescence of the fig shows three types of flowers. Female flowers, they are found at the bottom. Male flowers, they are found at the opening or the place near the opening of the inflorescence. And their third category of flowers called as gall flowers, which are found between male and female. Once again, this inflorescence found in fig is a special type called hypanthodium inflorescence. This shows a cluster or a grouping of three types of flowers. Male flowers at the bottom, female flowers near the opening of this hypanthodium, and the third category is the gall flowers between male and female flowers. Now what happens? The female fig visits the flower, visits the inflorescence, right? And it later on uses the fruit and it lays the eggs. You can see there are small eggs that are laid. All right, so this is like an egg laying site, and not only just it enters inside the fruit. You can see here, this was the flower, but this is the fruit. It is not only entering inside to lay the eggs inside the fruit, but also uses some of its seeds within the fruit to nourish the young larvae. Now we know, children, when an egg hatches, the young to emerge out will be the larval stage. So you can see the female laying egg inside the fruit and uses the seeds as the suitable egg laying site. In return to this, the fig provides wasp some of the developing seeds, right? And what is the advantage to the fig plant? It's giving so much to the wasp, blastophaga. Blastophaga is this wasp or the insect. So what is this getting? So many benefits: to get a safe place to lay eggs, and also some seeds that are being used to feed the larval stages. But what is the plant getting in return? It is getting the act of pollination. So this is a very, very special relationship of symbiosis between the plant being benefited, it's getting pollination, and the wasp or the blastophaga, because it is getting a safe place to lay eggs in the fruits and also in the developing eggs within the fruit for nourishing the larvae. And the last relationship for today, which is between orchids and bees. This is a special one called as the cheating or deceit. Let us see this first. Orchids, they have a variety of floral plants, or we can say floral patterns, floral designs. These patterns, they attract the night pollinator insects like bees and the bumblebees. There is a Mediterranean orchid called Ophrys, right? And this employs a method of sexual deceit or a sexual cheating, right, to bring about pollination. Now let us see how. The blue colored structure, this is a flower of the orchid. This is the flower. So the petals of this flower bear a resemblance to the female bee. How do they resemble? In size, color, markings, everything. Now when at night the pollinator visits the flower, it thinks in a wrong manner that this is the female bee. It does not understand that this is a flower, but it is deceived or cheated by the plant because the plant is showing the petal shaped like a female bee, and the male bee visits it and pseudo-copulates. Pseudo means falsely copulates, and doing so, it transfers the pollen, at the same time receives through the hairy body. So both the processes are done. See, this is what the flower is cheating the insect for. It is trying to deceive it only to bring pollen and also to give it for the act of pollination to other flowers. So this is how the male bee is doing both the jobs, transferring the pollen, bringing and dusting over the female petal, in the flower which is shaped like a female bee, at the same time receiving pollen from here and dusting it to the other flowers. So this is a very specific example of co-evolution of bees and orchid flowers. You know why? Because if there is a slight change in the color of the bee's body, suppose this is slightly changed, then what will happen? This will reduce the resemblance with the flowers, and also the orchid will not, or also the bee on the orchid is not detected by the predator. So if this resemblance changes, naturally the act of deceit won't be successful and the male bee will not be able to identify it. Now, the benefit that the male bee or the bee that is getting by this act is that it is not being detected by the predator, and due to the resemblance, the predators, they are not able to identify. So we are talking of mutualism, children. We are talking of advantages that both the partners are able to achieve. The plant has achieved the act of pollination by deceiving the male bee, right? But what is the bee getting in return? The bee is getting protection from the predators due to the resemblance with the flower petal, right? And then there's a special thing to understand in this relationship, that if one of the species go extinct or one of the partners is extinct, the other also will be extinct, because they're so much dependent on each other that they will not be able to survive in the absence of one of the partners. So this is like an extreme case, you can say one of the highest case of mutualism or symbiosis. So that completes the topic for today. Once again, let us revise. I am finishing with this chapter also, children. I'll show you how this is shown in your page at 698 in the textbook. The bee that is visiting the orchid flower, you can see how this is visiting one of the petals shaped like a female bee, and the male visiting it to pseudo-copulate. So to end up our class today, quickly if we sum up what examples we have studied the examples of lichens, mycorrhiza, zoochlorellae and animals, symbiotic nitrogen fixation, then termites and trichonympha, ruminants and cellulose digesting animals, myrmecophily, which is a totally new term, children, very interesting, and I hope you have understood. Then a very simple act, and we already know this, pollinators and dispersers, right? And fig and wasp, that was this flower. I have discussed how both the partners are being benefited. and then orchids and the bees. So this is how the extreme case of mutualism. We end up this video just now, and this also ends up our chapter number 6, that is on organisms and populations. And remember children, our classes are exactly as per the reduced syllabus. So whatever is being extra, we are not taking because it's not a part of this current year of syllabus. In my next video, I'll be starting with our 7th chapter, that is on human reproduction. So thank you children, and write these notes, 3 pages. I'm going to send you 1, 2 and 3. Any doubts you can certainly ask anytime. Thank you.